everyone, it's Evelyn, and we are on to the Q&A for the month of June. Now, you're watching this on July 2nd because that is the first Wednesday after the final Saturday video in June. The next Q&A, which for July, will be on Wednesday, July 30th, which is the same thing, first Wednesday after all of the Saturday videos. So, getting that little bit out of the way, let's get on to the first video of the month, and that was June at my flower wagon. So Deborah Hockenberry 5440 asks, are your ranunculus in a shady area? Does the heat you're getting now affect them? Now, I did go over that in my June on my urban flower farm video, which was the next week's video. But for those of you who didn't watch it, I will just put up a quick picture and I will go over what I do to shade my ranunculus. So I have these old lattice panels that are 7 feet long by 2 feet wide that I had used for something many, many years ago. And a few years back, I decided to use them to shade out some new plantings when it was really, really hot. And I found it worked really well because it has just excellent airflow through all those large holes on it. And the lattice work, because it's wide, also creates some really good shade as the sun travels. I've never used shade cloth. I actually have a roll of it. I had to buy a roll of it when we put shade cloth on our flower wagon on 3 sides to keep the sun from beating in there. And we used so little of it that I have almost a full roll of it. But I just really like the way these lattice panels work. So I use them for shade, and I did use them on my ranunculus, and it worked really well when we had a short heat spell at the beginning of June to shade them out enough to keep the temperature of the soil, because that's what's important, cool enough that it stayed where the corms are buried to 22 degrees Celsius or less, because if the corms go temperature-wise go above 22 degrees Celsius, that's what will trigger them to stop sending up bloom stalks. Now, I will say that then for the rest of June, we cooled back down to the regular temperatures, which for us are hover around 20 degrees Celsius. But now that we're at the very end of June, we're back into another heat wave. I think we went up to 29 degrees Celsius yesterday. It's already 30 on our deck. It's hot out there. And basically the ranunculus are finishing because they don't like the heat that they're on for obvious reasons. And I didn't bother putting the shade up around them because it was only a matter of time that they were going to stop anyway. So that's how I shade out my ranunculus. So that was the answer to that question there. And then we had a question from Canadian Gardening 6A. And she goes, flower wagon, question mark. Would the town allow you to build a flower stand just inside of the 2 metal gates? At night, you could just lock the gates. Do you bring your flower wagon in every night? So there's a few issues with that. There's 3 main issues with that. The first one that we thought about, because we had thought about doing that, is that our property is on quite a bit of a slope right from the get-go. So if you look at this picture, you can see our driveway gate, which we had thought we could leave open and just do a little stand on the inside of the driveway gate, which of course is a problem because then we can't use the driveway. But the pedestrian gate, which is the smaller one, we can't block that off because that's how people come and go. So a flower wagon would completely block off the pedestrian gate, so it would have to be the driveway gate. But if you look at the driveway gate, and then I'll put up that I have on the screen now, you'll see that it goes uphill to it. And if you look at this next picture, you can see there's a little eyelet sticking out to the side of the gate. That's where the gate closes. I'm pointing to it in the picture. Well, that's what that's for is if you look at this next picture, there's the little key latch here. Now you can see, now I've got the pictures on my phone because I haven't downloaded them yet, so I just have to look at my notes to say. So where the eyelet on the driveway gate is, it is at 13 and a half inches off of the driveway. But when the driveway gate opens to where we can hold it open, and we have that there specifically so that if we want to leave the driveway gate open for hours at a time, it just helps take the weight off the gate. At that particular spot, that eyelet where the hook is at 39 and a half inches off the ground. So basically we have an average of a 2-inch drop for every foot because the driveway gate itself is 13 foot 2 inches or 158 inches. Now, it's not a 2-inch drop for every foot. It's very random, but that's what it averaged out to. But the other thing is that the driveway itself from left to right is not even either. So we would literally have to build a ramp to hold a structure on that, and then we really could not use the driveway at all, which would be a serious problem. So that was number one. The other issues became that we are actually not a town. We are a city. So if you look at this picture here, this is Campbell River. This is where I live. This portion that you're looking at is just a portion of the city. It's less than half. So you're looking up north, up the Georgia Strait. If you go south, there's actually more than that amount of the city. And actually, if you see the little estuary with the river, that is the Campbell River, which is why we're called Campbell River. You can also see why we're called the Gateway to the North, because past us, there's nothing for a while. But anyway, we are an actual city, small city. We're not a large city. We don't have millions of people here. But we do have a population base, if you look on here on the Canadian census, of, what does it say on here? Population estimate for 2024, which was last year, 43,721. So when you're a city, granted small city, not big city, but the rules and regs still apply, you have a lot of rules and regs that you have to follow, which is the amount of signage you can have, easements, setbacks from your property lines for any structure that you put up, and so forth and so on. And we couldn't have a permanent structure because it would be right up against the gate. And we wouldn't want it anyway because, you know, it blocks the driveway and so forth and so on, which we've already gone over. But the other thing, when I decided to have a home office for my business, the insurance company said, you have people in your office. You have meetings for your customers in your office. Your insurance is going to change. And it was going to change astronomically. So I don't have people come to my home office. My home office is where I work. When I have meetings with customers, it's usually in their house because I'm an interior designer. We're meeting in their house to go over things that they want to do. We're not meeting in my home, and specifically not in my home because there's absolutely no way we were going to pay that astronomical difference in the insurance. And that would apply the same thing. The minute I had a structure inside the gates, we're now on my property, and the insurance costs would really, really go up because we would be liable for anything that happened to anybody. The flower wagon right now is on the city boulevard. That's not our property. And in fact, they could quite easily tell me not to have it there, but they don't because they like it. And yeah, so that's the reason why we don't do that. Now let me just go back to just something else. Do you bring your flower wagon in every night? No, and for the same reason. That slope makes that flower wagon really, really hard to go up and down the slope. The minute we turn into our driveway and are on that slope, all the way to the flower wagon goes to one side. Anything in the flower wagon would simply fall to the end of it. So I'd have to take everything out of it before we did that anyway. The first year, we did bring the flower wagon in every night, but it was a much simpler structure. It was literally just the wagon. And we had put an umbrella up on it, and that was a really bad idea because every time there's a little bit of a wind, the umbrella wanted to take off, and it's like, no, don't do that. So anyway, we can't do that because it's not that easy to maneuver. We'd have to take everything out anyway because everything would literally fall over with the slope. So I have like a clear file tote that I put all the vases in, and I just put it inside the gate. But I take any leftover flowers down to the bouquet making station, which is further down our driveway where our two-car garage is, and where the bouquet making station is one of the bays of the garage. And I put them in there because in the morning I have to rejuvenate and replenish or change anything that needs rejuvenating, replenishing, or changing. So I'm going to do that anyway. So it's actually quite easy. One tote goes inside the gate. It's 2 trips down to the bouquet making station. 1 trip with a container that holds the vases that have flowers in it, of which there's 3. And then the next trip I have whatever bouquet is left, if there is a bouquet left, in one hand, and I have the flat with the pop cans in the other hand, and I carry those down. So that's 2 trips. And in between the 2 trips, I'm bringing up a bucket of water with a pair of scissors so that I'm ready to start cutting flowers in the morning in the front garden, because that's where the snapdragons and a lot of the sweet peas are. So when I come out in the morning, I have that bucket of water and the scissors right there, and I do the front garden, and then I go down to the back garden. So I make double use of the trip in between the 2 trips. So that's why we don't do anything inside the metal gates. Long answer for a short question. Okay, so where am I now? Was there another question on that video? No, we're going to move on to June on my tiny urban flower farm. Okay, Common Law 5400 asks, Miss Evelyn, when you plant the alium seeds, sprinkle them on top of about a foot of dirt. I have dug many up that, by the way, this is not a question. This is an FYI. You might want to do this statement. And I thought I'd share it because it's a good piece of information for everybody to know. When you plant the alium seeds, sprinkle them on top of about a foot of dirt. Oh no, I'm going to explain what the statement is towards. So if you look at this picture, you can see here I have specifically the white Mount Everest aliums, and I have labeled one of those stalks with a white pipe cleaner because I'm going to experiment with letting it go to a full seed head and then planting the seeds and just seeing how the progression of that works. And I'm specifically doing it with my Mount Everest because I only have 7 of those growing, and that would be one that I would like to have more of. Unlike my Globemaster, which I have 40, I don't need to increase the amount of those. So, and somebody had told me that you can take the seeds, I don't remember who it was anymore, grow them out to little tiny onionlets, I don't know what to call that, aliumets, and the first year, and then the second year the bigger, and I think the third year you'll get a full-size flower bloom out of it. So I'm going to experiment with that. I think that would be pretty interesting. So Common Law 5400 says, Miss Evelyn, when you plant the alium seeds, sprinkle them on top of about a foot of dirt. I have dug many up that seeded in places I didn't need them to be, and that's how far down the roots got. Even in hard-packed, rock-infested clay, they are determined to live. Thank you for sharing your gardening and sales experience. So that's just a good information to know, which means you don't want to sprinkle them on, let's say, a 1-gallon pot because that's only 6 inches high. So I'm going to go for a bigger pot that's 1 foot deep, and I'll just sprinkle all the seeds on top of that, or not even any, like I was originally thinking I would just do them in little tiny pots, 4-inch pots. But clearly I'm going to look for a pot that's at least 12 inches deep and then sprinkle all the seeds on that, or some of the seeds on that, and see how that all goes. So that was a very helpful piece of information. Thank you very much, and I thought I'd share it. So then, that is literally the only thing I have to share from June on my tiny urban flower farm. There was no questions. So now we're going to move on to June bouquets. So Cut Flowers says, I wonder if you could go over watering dahlias on your next Q&A. Now this, I wasn't talking about dahlias in this video, but it's coming to a time when this is something that people are really thinking about, especially if they're in a hotter climate than me. So she just wanted me to go over this in the Q&A. And by the way, that's a good point. You don't have to specifically ask questions about the video that you want me to go over in the Q&A. If you have a question that doesn't relate to that month's worth of videos, but is pertinent to you at this time, put the question in. Anyway, I wonder if you could go over watering dahlias on your next Q&A. I thought I heard you say on an earlier video that you water daily, and yes, I do, unless it's raining, of course. I am watering this year every 2 or 3 days. It has been a wetter spring in southwest Ontario, so don't want to overdo it either. Also, have you considered lilies as cut flowers? So let's just go back to the dahlias for a second. So if it's raining, I don't water. If it's been raining hard, I don't water the first day that it's dry, but I will always water the second day that it's dry. And partially, you need to know your soil. So because I dig trenches in between my dahlia plants, moving through the beds, I'll dig a trench about 2 feet long by about only 6 inches wide. I place all my tubers in the same direction so I know where I can dig the trench without hitting any tubers. I have a really good idea of the moisture level in my soil when I dig that trench. And I dig the trench because then I do direct composting. I put plant waste in the trench that I dug that day, fill it back up with dirt, do the same thing the next day, and so forth and so on. And while I'm doing those trenches, I'm weeding, I'm pulling off the bottom leaves, because pulling off the bottom leaves gives better airflow down around the bottom. So I'm always aware of what the soil moisture content is like. And what my soil content is like will be nothing like yours, because it all depends on what your soil is. Now, I thought, and I did, do a short little video showing how I water every day, so you can get an idea of how much water I give them. And I will put that video up right now. I'm watering the dahlia bed. I don't have my microphone on, so hopefully you can hear me. I'm watering the dahlia bed that had all the feverfew in it, as you can see here, that the ladybugs are in. And this is basically how I water. I purposefully hit all my dahlia plants on the top, just to make the stems a little bit stronger, let them get bashed around a bit by the water flow. And go until the surface of the soil is starting to puddle. Today I'm watering at about 8 o'clock in the evening, because we're in a bit of a heat wave again, and it was too hot in the afternoon to be nailing the plants like this, because the leaves would burn. So that's that bed. Now I'll just move on to the other one. And didn't want the leaves to burn, so I'm coming out at 8 p.m. I have been just going out around dinner time, right before dinner, and giving everything a good water. As you can see, I just bash everything. We're on a pretty good slope, so this one I have to be careful so that the water doesn't run off, so I just water lightly and then I'll come back. And same thing, I hit all my plants, so you can get an idea of how much water I'm giving them. And I do this once a day, unless we've had rain. Of course, if it's raining, I'm not going to water. But if we get a lot of rain, I'll skip a day, which I did yesterday, because we had 3 days of really, really good rain. As she rolled her ball in there, and look, she knows not to go in there to get it. And I'm not going to get it yet until I finish watering this bed. Anyway, so I skipped yesterday, and now I'm back here watering. Look at this pretty little poppy here. Isn't that pretty? And yeah, that's pretty much it. So you get an idea for how much water I give the dahlias, and how I really do soak down the dog. Soak down the plants. Okay, so that's my little example of how I water. I'm going to get the ball for Esri now. Oops, got to turn the water off. Here we go. So some of the things that I did not mention in that video is that I mentioned that I watered it, I think at 8 p.m. I did the video yesterday. I think I mentioned that I watered it around 8 p.m. Generally, I water just before dinner time, and that's because generally we have not, it's starting to cool off a bit then. We have quite a temperature drop from morning, or from day to night. Usually, I think yesterday, for example, we went up to 29 degrees Celsius, and 30 degrees, by the way, is 86 Fahrenheit, so we were close to 86 Fahrenheit. But we dropped down to 14 degrees Celsius at night. So in Celsius mode, we were 15 degrees difference from morning to night. So we don't actually get really hot until later on in the day, although we were hot all day today. I said usually. Anyway, so I can generally start to water my dahlias just before dinner, because it's starting to cool off here, because we're right by the ocean, so we get a lot of the ocean breeze coming in later on in the day, which is something that most people don't have. So that really makes a difference in the temperature at that time of day. Now, if you water in the morning, make sure you water, if you're cutting dahlias, this applies to when you're cutting them for cut flowers, make sure you water them at least a half an hour before you're cutting them. Because the thing with dahlias is those stems are like straws. They suck up a lot of water. I have pretty good vase life on my dahlias, and it's because I water them a lot. They are thirsty flowers. So you might look at the plant and go, it doesn't need more water. And then you're only getting like 4 days vase life out of it. And you go, well, why is that? It's because it's actually not completely hydrated when you're cutting it. You want your dahlias to be very hydrated when they're at the point of cutting for cut flowers. So that is one reason that I absolutely water my dahlias every single day, unless we've got rain, and skip a day if it's been a heavy rain, which we do get where I live. Now that's when the temperatures are below 30 degrees Celsius, which is 86 Fahrenheit. When the temperatures go above 30 degrees and they're flowering and I'm cutting them for cut flowers, this doesn't apply until I'm cutting them, I then bump up my watering to twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening, because they are thirsty plants. Same type of watering as you just saw. And I'll do it in the morning and the evening so that I don't burn the leaves, because as you see, I'm hitting all the leaves with the water. By hitting all the leaves with the water, you're really creating a stronger plant, but you're also creating a situation that things like aphids don't like. They don't want to be on leaves that are getting blasted with water every day or twice a day. So it does keep my pest problem down a bit. The bees, etc., if they're flowering, they're in the flowers. Well, I'm not nailing the flower heads with the water stream. I'll be aiming it for below it specifically so that I'm moving the stems around to give them more strength. Now, back to watering. If we get really, really hot stretch, which is above 35 degrees Celsius or above 95 degrees Fahrenheit, I might consider watering 3 times a day. Right at the 35 degrees, I'll start to consider it. As it climbs up higher than that, I will definitely consider it. And clearly, if we hit 40 degrees Celsius, that's a must, 3 times a day. So that gives you an idea of how much I water my dahlias. Quite a bit, and it's because they are very, very thirsty flowers. And I think that's one reason that they do really well in our climate, because we are a wet climate and they enjoy all that moisture that they get. Okay, so part 2 to that question is she says, also, have you considered lilies as cut flowers? I don't like lilies that smell, so I stick with Asiatic. I have had a couple of earlier ones already start blooming, and for my personal arrangements, lily give an option for focal flowers before dahlias and zinnias start. Now, the reason she's saying this is because when I did my June bouquets, I was at this really weird time where my peonies had finished, but my sunflowers and snapdragons, which are my next focals, hadn't really started. So I'm just sort of doing make-do bouquets for about a week that I didn't have anything really focal nice to use. Now, normally I would have my aliums, but because of that heat wave we had at the beginning of June, it blew my aliums open. So they became useless far sooner than I thought they would be. So she also thought that the lilies might be good candidates for my decks. Now, I actually have been considering lilies for next year for 2 reasons. One, I think our dogs, Leela and Ezri, the 2 golden retrievers, are now old enough not to do any taste testing on them, because golden retrievers are really well known for putting everything in their mouths. And oftentimes that is why the average lifespan on a golden retriever, in my belief, is less than it should be, because they put everything in their mouths. And it was a problem when they were puppies. I used to have an awful lot of daylilies on the property, and I had to dig them all up and give them away because Leela specifically was digging them up and eating them, and those are so toxic. I have no idea if they munched on the foxgloves or not, but she was taste testing everything. So anything that I could dig up and get rid of that I thought was toxic, I did. Rhododendrons are toxic. She was chewing on the wood of the rhododendrons. I'd take it away. You know, if I did prunings, like try and make sure that she couldn't get at it. But I've noticed she's not. Ezri never did that. It was mostly just Leela. I've noticed she's not seemingly doing that anymore. So I thought now might be a good time to think about lilies, because I am now that they're going to be 5 in a few weeks, they're 5 August 1st, they're past that curiosity mode. And so I actually was looking into it, and my wholesaler that I use, Van Nort, for the first time this year, they are offering 3 different Asiatic lilies that not only are scent-free, but are pollenless. So I actually had them in my file already to consider buying. And they are the Belvedere, which is a white one. I have already stopped doing large white dahlias because I find that big splash of white really hard to work into a bouquet. So I'm not sure that I want to try Belvedere. But Elode, or however you say that, is a soft pink. And that's much easier to work into a bouquet. And people like pink in bouquets. And it would work really well with my snapdragons. So I'm thinking I might try that one because, as I said, it's pollenless and scent-free. And then they have this other one that's called, what's it called? Easy Spot. And I like that one because it's got that sort of deep crimson tone that I like. But it's also got the white in it, but it's not a solid white, so it will still bring that sunshine sparkle into the bouquet. And it looks like it's a slightly more ivory white than pure white, which means it would pair well with the white light and white night sunflowers. So those 3 lilies, all 3 Asiatics, but all 3 pollenless and scent-free, are flowers that I'm considering doing for next year. I don't know if I'm going to be placing a wholesale order because, first of all, my minimum order has to be so big. And of the actual flowers, there's a minimum dollar value the order has to be, and then there's minimum quantities that you have to order of each thing. So if I'm not going to put in a wholesale order, I may go to our Campbell River Garden Center and see if they can bring them in for me if they weren't normally going to be bringing them in, because they haven't done that for me before. They did that for me for my evergreen gladiolas. They didn't bring them in on their spring order, and I hadn't ordered them. And so I asked them if it was possible for them to still get it in, and it was, and they did bring them in for me. So I may go to them and see if they can bring them in for me. I will be paying retail, but I don't have to buy the volume. So we'll see how that all works. So if you're enjoying this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up. Thank you very much if you have, or if you're going to. And also, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. It always helps. And again, thanks in advance or thanks after the fact. So that is it for that video. We're now going to move on to the last video of the month, which is Snapdragon Bouquets. So Squadio Data MJ 5998, Squadio Data MJ 5998 asks, and now a question about how you tie your bouquets. Once you tie the 2 free ends, so what he's talking about is I use a piece of twine. It's approximately 2 feet long. You just figure out the length that you like. This is for reference. I don't have my measuring tape handy. It's, yes. If I hold it between my thumb and my index finger, it goes up to my shoulder. So that gives you an approximate. Of course, I have long arms. So I fold it in half. And then I go around the bouquet, which gives me a loop. And then I feed the 2 ends through it and pull it tight. Now, the reason I pull it tight is because it stays tight, which allows me to then tie a bow tie, not bow tie, a bow, like on a shoe. And if I didn't run it through the loop like that and just tried to tie it, it would be too loose and the flowers would fall apart, and I kind of arrange it as I go. So for example, I brought in some sunflowers. I'm going to take them out of their vase. I'm going to have a little lid here. See if I can hold that onto me there. So let's say this was my bouquet. I mean, it is a bouquet of sunflowers. If I just simply ran the twine around it and then tried to tie it, as soon as I let go of it, you can see the stems get loose. So that is why you will see some florists or flower farmers, what they do is they'll have what they want as their lead, and then they'll wrap this around twice, and then tie it, and it stays tight if you wrap it around twice. I don't like doing that because I think what I do is actually faster. So I do the fold it in half, just place it here and hold it with my thumb, and then I come around the other side, and then I just go through the loop. It's not going very easy right now as I'm showing you because I'm doing it in a weird position. And then I pull tight, and then if I put it down on here, you will see it holds its position, and then I'll tie the bow. So the loop, going through the loop specifically is just to hold the arrangement in position as you tie the bow on it like you would a shoe. So, and that again is much the same as other flower farmers who can take the same length of twine, hold one end here, and then wrap around twice, pull tight, and then tie it. It's the same thing. I just, from spending quite a few years living on Cortez and owning a few boats, this sort of tie where you go through a loop is just kind of like a boat trick, and it makes it really, really easy to do and cinches it up nice and tightly, and can do it sort of generally without even thinking about it. It's clearly difficult to do when you're holding your bouquet in an odd position that you're not used to. But again, if I just do it on my finger, say I was going to tie a bow on my finger, you just keep a loop. You come around to the other side, you go through. Oops, sorry, I wasn't doing that on camera. Excuse me. I'm just going to hold the loop. I'm going to come around my finger, pull through and pull tight, and it's tight. I can let go of it. Nothing's going to happen. It's not going to loosen its loop, and then I can very easily tie a bow as though I was tying a shoe. So that's why I do that. It's just a really simple and easy thing to do. As I said, other flower farmers will simply take their finger and wrap around it a couple of times. Excuse me. Sorry about that. And do the same thing. It's a preference of mine to do it with the loop folded in half. And it serves no other purpose than to hold the twine tight while I tie the bow so that the bouquet doesn't lose the organization that I did within it. Because lots of times when people buy my bouquets, they don't actually untie that knot. They leave it as it is and put it in a vase because they like the way it's arranged, and you would lose that the minute it started to fall apart. Okay, so that's the answer to that. Hopefully that helps. The next question is from Deborah Hockenberry 540, and she says, I think the new one is Black-Eyed Susan. I grew them in many other varieties where I get a ton of cuts for bouquets. There are many varieties. Have you ever tried the other Bachelor Button colors? I have the pink, white, and a beautiful lavender shade of purple. They all start so well in the seed snails. I also have a lot of feverfew. They pop up everywhere. I try to use them as filler. The vase life on them is pretty good too. I will say that as soon as we got to these really hot temperatures, my feverfew is not holding up. So that's just something I made a mental note of because I wasn't really using it in bouquets in previous years. I let it grow where I've got it growing right now, which you would have seen in my June garden tour around one of the dahlia beds. And that is specifically because I throw the ball up and down the driveway for the dogs, and it stops the ball from rolling into that dahlia bed. Yeah, mainly it was to stop the ball from rolling into that bed because that seems to be the bed that the ball goes in a lot. Sometimes people come, Ezra will put her ball up on the landing where our gate is to go to the road, and they'll pick it up and they'll throw it, and they don't throw it very far, and then because of our slopes it wants to roll into that bed as well. So the feverfew was just a natural barrier to stop that. And then of course the ladybugs were mating on it, so I left it. And now they're big enough that I can use them as little bits of filler in bouquets, and I still don't want to pull them up because of the ball issue, but they're impeding on my dahlias growing on there, so I'm just going on the inside of the bed and cutting those. Well, you would have seen it in the video, short little video I had a little earlier of how I water. So I'm just keeping them back from the dahlias by cutting those inside parts, and I was using those as filler, but when we got really hot yesterday, they didn't hold up well at the flower wagon, and that's the feverfew. Bachelor Buttons hold up great. They are fantastic in the heat, as are sunflowers, as are snapdragons. What else have I got in bouquets right now? I'm trying to think. Doesn't matter. Okay, so Bachelor Buttons. I have tried in the past. I tried the Classic Fantastic, which is shades of blue. I tried the Classic Magic, which is shades of purple. And the Classic Romantic, which is shades of red, from almost pure white to all the way to really, really dark. And the only one that I really, really liked was the really dark purple. And so I found Johnny's has one called Black Button Bachelor Buttons. And so I ordered a packet of those and not of any other of the Bachelor Buttons, because it was really only the dark purple that I liked. Now, I did use them when I grew them, and that was, I believe, in 2023. And I like them in custom arrangements. So if you look in this vase arrangement, you can see I've got at least one white one. Actually, I can count 3 white ones and 1 red one. And they look good in there. But that's a custom arrangement with a lot of flowers. So they just add a little bit of extra in there. And in this vase arrangement that I'm going to put up, same thing. It's another custom arrangement, which has a lot of stuff in there. So I've got some pale blue ones in there, which look really, really good, and 1 red one in there, which looks really, really good. But when I do my flower wagon bouquets, there is a lot less stems. So they need to be more impactful. So if you look at this arrangement, I've got a couple of peonies, I've got a Globemaster alium, I've got a Mount Everest alium, and then I've got 1 black button Bachelor Button that sits up higher with its darkness, creating balance because of the darkness. And by setting it up higher, it also makes the bouquet a little airier rather than so compact, because without it, it would just feel really, really compact. And that little tiny spot of black button Bachelor Buttons poking up higher adds a bit more breathing room through the bouquet. If that had been any of the paler shades of red or purple or blue, it would not have that effect, which is what I like about the black button. And in this other bouquet here, same thing. So here I've got my Pauline Ranunculus, a Mount Everest alium, a Globemaster alium. I think those are camellia leaves. And then I've got 1 black button Bachelor Button poking up high again. Had that been a paler color, it wouldn't have had the same drama to it. So because I keep my flower wagon bouquets to a minimum number of stems, usually they're about 8 to 12, sometimes they go to 14, depending on what I have, each flower or each filler that I put in there must have a specific purpose. And for me, the Bachelor Buttons that I use must be impactful. What's going by? Ambulance. Must be impactful. So I can't, and because I usually have them sitting up high to create a little bit of more airiness, they can't be pale in color. So that's that. And the black button is far more versatile than a dark red one or a blue one would be. The dark purple, almost black purple, really goes with everything. So that is why I have more or less stuck with the black button ones. I did have, I had bought a package of 500 seeds, and in that there was 1 seed of blue that came up this year. And I've been enjoying using the blue, but I wouldn't only grow blue. I would only grow the black button, but maybe a few blue ones just for a little bit of difference I might do next year. I don't know, because now that my peonies are a lot larger, they grew quite a bit this year from last year. And fourth year, and presumably next year they will grow quite a bit more. And my space in those 4 flower beds where the Ito peonies are, because that's what I'm speaking specifically of, the other planting area in them is greatly reduced. So I'm now having to think far more carefully about what I'm going to grow, because I actually have less space to grow cut flowers in than before, simply because of the size of the peonies, which is great because now I'm getting peonies. Okay, so then comes Cut Flowers, who says, I have a question about the Borage stem. It looked rather thick to me on camera. Is that typical for Borage? Well, Borage generally has stems 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. On my property, they would definitely be closer to the 1/2 inch mark. I have had some borage grow in certain areas on my property with thinner stems, but they are also floppier stems. So the thicker stems stand up really nicely. The color and effect in the bouquet was wonderful, but not sure the monster stem would work, lol. And how eagerly does it self-seed? It self-seeds. I don't mind reseeders as long as they are easily removed. They're very easy to remove. It's just like tink, tink, tink. I mean, they do not, there's no effort in removing them at all. The biggest issue with their self-seeding is that they don't have a time of year that they come up. They just come up all season long. And I don't mind them coming up because they are easy to pull up if they're coming up where I don't want them. Very, very easy. And the bees absolutely love borage. So it's something for the bees to have. They will grow up under my sunflowers, which is really, really nice. Now I'm talking about them and I should show them. So here is a stem of borage. So I cut this down at ground level. So you can see there's my finger and there's the stem. It's about the same thickness. This is from ground level, it's going up to just before my shoulder. But these will, if I don't cut them, these will continue to grow up to about here on me. They grow really tall. They love my property. Whatever conditions I have is something that borage absolutely loves. So they will grow into very tall, very sturdy, very good, almost bushes of these beautiful little blue flowers. I mean, even the flower heads before they open are really quite beautiful. They're prickly, like if you look at them, prickly but not prickly, fuzzy. So you can see this. Can you see the fuzz on them there? They're covered in this fuzz. It's a little uncomfortable to touch, but it doesn't prick into you. Like they're soft, but it is a little uncomfortable. And they will start putting secondary stems out right from down at the ground base and all the way up. Like you can already see that this one is starting to grow as a secondary stem, as is this one, and so forth all the way up. I mean, the third one up already has a little flower head coming out of it. And the next stem up has a little flower head. And then you get up to the next one. Flower head's a little bigger. You get up to the next one, it's a little bigger. The next one starting to bloom, and then of course you got the blooms. So this, it's kind of like a dahlia. It's got a thick stem that's, can you see how, yeah, there you can see how hollow it is. You can look right up the stem. So it needs a lot of water. Otherwise it will droop. So just holding it out of the water, you can see it's starting to droop a bit. So it needs to be very, very well hydrated, very, very well watered before you use it. I generally will not use this at my flower wagon because of how hot it is up there, but I will always use it in custom bouquets because it never sits in the heat of the flower wagon. I keep my custom bouquets in the shade until they're picked up, so they're never getting that constant blast of the sun on them like the bouquets do that are at the flower wagon. So if you don't want something that self-seeds, borage is probably not something for you. They do, the little tiny flower heads are so easy to get rid of, and I'm fine with that. And I also think that when you have cut flower beds, anything that's growing in there that's not supposed to be there is just adding health to the soil. Now I plant quite densely, so by the time, I mean, if you saw in the video of the dahlias, they're actually about 15 inches apart. But if you look at the size of the leaves, you can barely see the soil anymore. So while I will weed in the dahlia beds, they get planted May 1st, I've gone through all the dahlia beds and weeded once, aside from the daily weeding that I do as I do my trenches that I put plant debris in. And just weeding the once, and then which sets back the weeds to start all over again, which I'm fine with because they're doing whatever they need to do for the soil. But then the dahlias start to get so big-leaved that the weeds no longer become an issue. And it's the same thing with pretty much everything that I have growing cut flower-wise. I grow everything really close together. Snapdragons are grown at about 3 inches apart. You can't see the soil in there either. Anyway, so that's just my spiel on borage. So what comes after that question? I lost where I was on here. Oh, yeah. So we're now going to do what for me has become a tradition, where I'm going to put up all of my favorite photos that I took within my tiny urban flower farm over the course of June. But before I show the photos that I have taken over the course of the month that I love, I've taken lots more that I'm putting up. These are just the ones that I absolutely love. I'm putting up a little clip of Leela and Esri down at the beach. Last month I did the same. Can't remember how long that video was. This one is 35 seconds long, so scoot ahead 35 seconds if you don't want to watch a little video on dogs. Last month I did one where we just got to the beach, so high energy, full blast energy, and lots of fun to watch. This one, it's a half an hour later. Not the same day, but it's a half an hour later where we're at our turnaround, which is where there's a little private marina for a condo complex, so you can't really go any farther. And they've already done their racing into the ocean, swimming, running back up to where I am, tearing around, going in the water, swimming, because they'll do swimming on their own. So they're not quite as high energy once they hit the turnaround. So this first 35-second video of Leela and Esri, it's a lot more mellow than the one that you saw last month. And then the pictures of my favorite photos within my flower farm will go up one after the other. And then at the end of the video, I will put a link to my May Q&A. First of all, if you want to see the other video of Leela and Esri, because it's a really good one. And also because there's some really good and interesting things that come up in that video. And then I will see you on Saturday. So, please enjoy. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you guys have a great next 3 days when I'm going to be doing my next video. Don't forget to check out my May Q&A if you haven't watched it already. Thanks for watching. Bye.